Now, the Prime Minister's been visiting the University of Surrey this morning. Let's have a listen to what he had to say. He is coming, apparently. I know you...
In Surrey, talking to student nurses on the day that we received some fantastic news that we have delivered our manifesto promise to recruit and retain an extra 50,000 nurses for our NHS, which is obviously great news. But we haven't stopped there. We're also taking the right decisions for the long term. Earlier this year, I announced a long-term workforce plan for the NHS, the first in its 75-year history, which will ensure that right now we're going to expand the number of training places for nurses, doctors and all sorts of medical professionals so that in the future we have the staff that we need. Great that we settled the consultants' dispute earlier this week as well. Very welcome news, and all the resources we're putting into the NHS now can go to giving patients the care that they need, and it's an opportunity for me to say thank you to all our fantastic NHS staff in advance of winter.
The COVID inquiry is ongoing. Colleagues of yours have said that the government was dysfunctional. You were right in the middle of it all. Do you recognise that description? And also, with the benefit of hindsight, do you now regret your Eat Out to Help Out scheme?
Well, it's right that we have the inquiry to learn the lessons of COVID, and that's what is happening. Government has cooperated fully, providing something like 55,000 different pieces of information. And now that the inquiry is up and running, the right thing to do is to allow it to run its course, and everyone should give evidence as they're meant to. I look forward to participating in the inquiry later on this year, and that's the appropriate way for all these conversations to happen so that collectively we can learn the lessons from COVID for the future.
You're heading to COP28 later. You push back some net zero targets. You've licensed a lot more oil and gas fields in the North Sea. Does this mean that you're no longer a world leader on the climate?
Absolutely not. We are a world leader when it comes to climate. That's what the stats show. We've reduced carbon emissions in this country faster than any other major economy. Our targets for the next few years are also more ambitious than any other major economy. And because of that, I thought the right thing to do was to ensure that we get to net zero in a pragmatic and proportionate way that saves working families thousands of pounds. I'm not in hock to ideological zealots on this topic. Of course we're going to get to net zero. Of course it's important. But we can do that in a sensible way that saves people money and doesn't burden them with extra costs. And that's the approach that we've taken. And I'm proud of that approach. I think that's the right thing. And I think that actually it's supported by the vast majority of the British public.
And on net migration.
So Rishi Sunak there talking this morning in a hospital with lots of empty beds.
Yeah.
That's quite an unusual sight, isn't it? Did they not think this stuff through? Who set that up? Why have you got empty beds behind you when you've got an 8 million people waiting list?
I know, exactly.
Anyway, it was very nice. He said he's done well.
And they've reached a manifesto target, 50,000 extra nurses. Hurrah.
Awesome.